Previewing. All right. And we're going to be live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. I am your host, Louis Sung, and I'm sure my co-host, Chad Ronenbaum, will be joining us soon. But for right now, we have Antwan V. Staley of Athlon Sports and the Palm Beach Post, Dolphins reporter. He was at OTAs all this month, and he's been watching very carefully about everything that's been going on, and he's going to give us his report on what he's seen, what he's been impressed by, what he was not so impressed by. And we're really excited to have him here. So, Antoine, thank you for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Louis, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. I can't complain. Good to be with you.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, OTAs has come and gone. It's been like almost a whole month of just lining up, no pads, no nothing like that. So obviously, we can't take too much from it. Can't put too much stock in everything that happened. However, that does not mean that there is nothing to take from it. So, and obviously, the biggest elephant in the room, and maybe emphasis on big because he's a big boy, Laramie Tunsil. There have been a lot of reports coming out about him struggling, him not doing so well, and people are already starting to get worried that we'd already drafted the next big bust. So, what's your first impressions of Laramie Tunsil and where you think he'll be going, moving in the training camp?
Well, you see, you getting tough. So like he's starting at a new position he's never played at guard. So first, let me just left guard. Let me just go ahead and throw that out there. So yeah, it's been some growing pains there. He has struggled at times to keep blockers in front of him, and also he's got today was really one of his worst days. He got beat a few times by Branch and also Sue, and yeah, he had a really tough day today. But overall, we feel like, and the media people talked about this. We feel like it's been a struggle, but again, we've been out there only an hour and a half, 2 hours each day, whereas the Dolphins, you ask the Dolphins, they feel like he's doing a good job, and it might be just the fact that they know eventually they see the potential in Tunsil, and they know eventually he's going to turn into a good player. I'd still think he's. I mean, obviously, like I say, he has some things to work on technique wise at left guard, but at the same time, I still see the potential there, and I have no doubt he's going to be at least a solid or at least upgrade from what they had last year. I just think that he's just going to have to take some time to learn the position, and you rather have him struggle now in OTAs and camp than when the games start counting in September's.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that, but the problem is that if you would one would think that if you struggle in the beginning, then you're probably going to struggle later on because, like, we've seen people, like, we were always hoping that maybe this year Dallas Thomas will finally figure things out. And last year at training camp, I was briefly fooled. I thought, wow, Dallas Thomas actually looks a lot better than he has any time before in his career. And then as soon as we got back to the games, Dallas Thomas went and did another flop. So essentially, what we're worried about is Laramie Tunsil not going to be able to catch on, and is he gonna have? Are we gonna have to watch him struggle when it counts, and everybody's gonna start getting worried that he's just not gonna cut it because they tried to move him to guard? There were a lot of
Yeah,
fears. No, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I understand that, and I mean it's valid that people were worried because the Dolphins, like we talked about this off the record, like yeah, I think everybody's kind of tired of the offensive line being the issue, and just it's been like that for the last 3+ years, and yeah, and it seems like now the offensive line, at least on paper, is as deep as it's ever been, and probably as best as it's been in the last 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, I understand that because Dallas Thomas came in with potential. People thought he was going to be a solid option they guard, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. So I can understand that, and but at the same time, you just have to. All I can tell people is just you have to just let the process play how it is because he's never played guard before. Like a lot of people think it's easy to move from left tackle to guard, but it isn't because like I say, he's so used to having that open space as opposed to he's playing with two people next to him. He's playing with a left tackle next to him, and he's playing next to Pouncey at center. So it's going to be some transition. How quickly he gets it, we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely been some growing pains there early.
And that's mostly with the whole footwork and hand speed sort of thing. Do you
Yes,
expect him to get better
and
once the
also
pad comes on?
dealing with bigger players. When you're at tackle, when you're left tackle, you're dealing with speed guys. So he's normally in college, at least anyway. He was probably bigger. He's bigger than most of the guys he faced. Now he's moving to left guard in NFL. You're against guys who are bigger than you, and they might be faster than you as well. So that's been the transition to him just getting used to trying to keep bigger guys and sometimes faster guys in front of him.
So it's been he's had to try and figure out how to get more physical when before he was more finesse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's definitely that. Like I said, that's really the transition. Yeah, just getting technique wise, and yeah, making sure you're able just to keep those guys in front of you. So yeah, I would just say it's more. I definitely think it's more technique wise and just getting stronger. Like that's the main thing. If he's gonna be your left guard at least for this year, or even if he's gonna play left tackle anyway, eventually he's gonna need to get stronger.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Okay, so now let's move on to a different topic, and it's another heavily argued topic, and probably the most argued topic in all of Dolphins history, at least the recent history, is what's going on with Ryan Tannehill. Now, I'm gonna ask you just in general first what you thought of Tannehill and OTAs, then we'll go into a little more specific. So, Ryan Tannehill, Antoine, enough said. Go.
Well, hey, from what we've taken it, like as far as him on the field, you see him being more vocal, definitely having a little bit more control over the offense, and Adam Gase is pretty much gonna let Ryan Tannehill sink or swim this year. So he's actually said he's gonna give him more responsibility. Something fans have been clamoring for, and definitely during the Philbin era, and you can definitely see him having a lot more fun, joking out there with the players, being a little bit more vocal. So we'll see how that translates on the field, but it's time. Like it's definitely time to see what he can do. I'm glad they got the Dolphins hired somebody like an Adam Gase to be able to put that responsibility on him and finally like Ryan will be 28 years old in July, so it's definitely you definitely have to see what you have in him, and if he's not the guy, it's time to bring somebody else along in there, or at least for competition purposes.
All right, and now let's talk a little bit more about the actual on the field stuff. Now, you just talked about his understanding of the offense and the freedom that he's getting, but now I want to know what's it like so far as him adjusting to the actual plays. Like I've heard reports about how Tannehill's made these throws, he missed a few easy throws. There's this throw, this throw. What's he looking like in during these like practice routes and all that?
Well, we see the whole. Let me break this down for people. Like we see they run like 11 on 11, maybe probably about through like 3 sessions throughout the day when we're at practice. Well, and we get open practices like throughout the 3 weeks. We've gotten to see 4 open practices, so it's not a lot we've seen of him. But the ones we see, like he's made some throws, he's missed some throws, obviously. But it hasn't, like I say, it's not nothing to. I can't really evaluate it like a whole lot, like compared to like you're actually watching in training camp because they do a lot more there, and we see it a lot. We see a lot more during training camp as opposed to an OTA session where it's still kind of regulated. Like there's certain parts of the OTAs we can't see, we can see. It just kind of it's like I say, it's a lot more regular. It kind of feels like how it does during the season. We see certain stuff that we're able to see, and some parts we're not. But the parts that we have seen, like I say, it's been average. I mean, it's been what you seen out of Ryan Tannehill the past few years. Like he's made some good throws, he's missed some deep balls, and that's kind of how he's been throughout the course of the almost 5 years now.
Yeah, now the debate is whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I hadn't seen enough throughout, and we'll see more once training camp gets started to put an evaluation on it. But again, he's learning a new offense. At least he seems like the players are saying he's getting comfortable with the offense, and I guess we just, like I say, we just have to wait and see how it plays out, really, because we really hadn't seen enough of him to put like to say he's going to be this. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback this upcoming year. I don't think anybody has seen that right now, seen enough of him at least through OTAs to say if he's made that jump.
Yeah. So, okay, so now let's go into some of Tannehill's weapons. Now, this is actually very interesting because certain members were very impressed by Kenny Stills. And actually, we had one of our writers who predicted that Kenny Stills actually wouldn't even make the roster because he would be traded for one reason or another because he's looking at the actions of the team rather than what they're saying. He's looking at what they're doing instead of what they're saying publicly. Now, it doesn't look like that prediction is going to come true. Apparently, Kenny Stills has been doing really well. Can you elaborate a little more on
Yes.
what he's done to impress?
Well, Adam Gates really likes Kenny Stills. Like what we found out as well, like he tried to trade for Kenny Stills. Like he wanted the Bears to try to acquire him when he was there, the offensive coordinator last year.
Yeah.
But they've been using him in different kind of ways. Like they kind of been rotating the receivers out, and I definitely think they've been using him in the slot. They've been using him outside. They've been using him in a number of different ways, and he could have a I don't want to say a big year, but he could definitely put up some numbers in this offense. You definitely have somebody like Adam Gase who knows how to use a weapon like a Kenny Stills who can potentially break open a play at any time. So I think I would be surprised if they traded him. I know how deep the Dolphins are in wide receiver, but I still think I have a feeling he will definitely be one of the receivers this upcoming year on the rosters. There's no doubt in my mind. Like he's pretty much I don't want to say set in stone because anything can change, but him, Devontae Parker, and Landry and Ryan Carew, the rookie from Rutgers, are definitely your top four receivers going into training camp.
Okay, so let me put you on the spot a little bit here. If you had to pick a number five just right now, who would it be?
Well, you're gonna. Well, I definitely think they're gonna keep Grant just simply because of special team purposes. So I think he'll be the fifth receiver, and the question will be, do they keep a sixth receiver? Obviously, they got Rashawn Scott there. They got a whole bunch of guys there who who could make the roster, who may not rate the roster. Um, Waylon, who's a guy that he's made some plays throughout camp. I really like him as well. If they decide to keep the sixth receiver, I probably would lean towards him right now at this point. But I don't know if they're going to keep six receivers on the roster. It's possible, but I'm not sure if Adam Gates necessarily wants to do that. I could definitely see Rashawn Scott definitely make a. Somebody on Twitter asked me today, do I think he's going to make the team? I said no. I think he's probably going to be a special teams guy. I mean, not special teams, but
Practice squad.
lost my train. Practice squad. Yeah, thank you. Practice squad type guy.
Well, we'll see what happens there. I actually think that if I had to make a choice, I'd think it would be Jakeem Grant as the number five, and then if there is a six, then maybe Griff Whalen or Rashawn Scott. But
Yeah.
I also know that Adam Gase likes to use running backs as an offense a lot, so maybe that could actually be technically the number six. So speaking of running backs, have you seen anything from Jay Ajayi that would indicate that Miami really actually does want to keep him? This is again one of those look at what they're doing rather than what they're saying moments. They went out and they tried to get C.J. Anderson. They're looking at Arian Foster. They looked at this. They looked at this. They tried everything they could to find a new running back, and they didn't. And now they're trying to say that Jay Ajayi is their guy. So, have you seen any proof in Ajayi's game that makes them think that they really believe it?
Uh, I mean, not really. I mean, that's still a big question. They have used him a lot during drills and things of that nature with the first team, but it's still questions there. That the players and the coaches obviously are saying the right thing, so you don't necessarily what to believe at this point how they feel about it, Jai. But yeah, you're right. Like they tried to get looked at other options throughout free agency. So they know they wasn't necessarily sold on the guy, and who could blame him? He's had some issues coming out of college, injury questions with the knee and things of that nature. So nobody really knows can he hold up for a full season. You also had Kenyon Drake, who also had some injury concerns in college as well. ended up breaking his arm and his leg, and people question can he hold up during the whole 16 game season. So you have that question as well. And you also have Daniel Thomas and Pete and Damian Williams back there as well at running back. So there's not a lot to be desired back there at the running back position as far as depth. So it's big questions there, and I don't know if we're necessarily going to know the answers to those until we get the pass on.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. The pads need to come on before any real evaluations of running backs can take place. It's just that they seemed so adamant to find somebody, and then they didn't, and now it looks like they're just trying to backtrack.
Yeah, it's definitely. I thought they might have taken a more of a look at Arian Foster, but so far they have not. So I don't know if if that says more about where Arian Foster is or more about the running backs that they have there on the roster. So I guess we'll find out sooner or later.
Yeah, all I'll say is that if Dallas Thomas is on the roster again, not Dallas Thomas, Daniel Thomas. There's so many
Daniel
Thomases
Thomas.
that we don't want. I just realized that like the name Thomas ever since Zach left has been cursed.
I never thought about that.
The last Thomas that was good for Miami was a Zach, and every other Thomas has been terrible. I just realized that. All right, so okay, let's move on to a different topic. Not so much about people who were at OTAs. Now, how about somebody who was not at OTAs? I have a question about what you think about the whole Rashad Jones situation. Now, obviously, Rashad is probably the biggest part of the defense, other than Ndamukong Suh himself, and he is apparently holding out to get even more money than he already making. So, I want to know: do you think that Rashad skipping OTAs is going to like seriously hurt the team moving forward?
No, I don't think so. It's so long as he's there at mandatory minicamp, which would be next week. Which we had a debate about the media writers. Was he going to be there? I think he will be because at that point, that's when you start to get fined. So you have to ask yourself, does getting fined will it make up for it? Will it make up for it at the end? And I don't know if the Dolphins are going to give him what he wants necessarily. I understand he's frustrated that more safeties are making more money than he is, especially now with Harrison Smith signing with the Vikings, and he's making 28 million guaranteed, I believe, something of that nature. So yeah, I can understand his frustration, but the problem is the Dolphins seem like they're not gonna give in to this man, at least not right now. Not this year. Maybe after the season they can talk, but it seems like no, they're not. They're definitely not going to do anything. But to answer your question, no, I don't think it'll hurt the team necessarily right now. I just think the longer he stays out, if he misses a mandatory minicamp, then yeah, I think at that point you start to hurt the team, and I think ultimately you'd have new players, especially at the safety position, and Rashad is such a gambler. Like they need to see how he plays and to see if they can be able to play with him, which I'm sure they will be able to. They need to know his tendencies. So I think that's the biggest thing. What is probably hurting the other players, seeing how they can play with or how they need to play with Rashad Jones.
Yeah, and speaking of the safety position, Isa Abdul, I no, not Isa Abdul Kudus, right? That's how
Hey,
you
it's
say it.
easy to get them confused.
There's so many weird names this year. Like I think the Dolphins are just trying to go for how many times can you get a commentator to mess up? Ifo Ekpreolamu Isa Abdul Kudus. Let's see. Okay,
Yeah, I just
anyway.
call him Easter because like that's easier for me.
Okay,
But,
what do you call Ifo then? Ifo or
yeah,
Efo or
yeah,
how do you say it?
yeah. I call Ipo. Yeah, like I leave the last names like yeah, that's easier for me.
How
Yeah,
long did it?
typing it is it's a chore.
Yeah. How long did it take you to be able to say Indomikong?
Oh, that was easy. Well, I had followed his career in college, so
Oh,
I do.
so you already knew how to say it. Okay.
Yeah,
There was no
I knew
learning.
about the Dominican Sue for years.
All right. Okay. So anyway, got a little off track there. Sorry. The safety positions. Now, obviously, Rashad is the star there, but there's a. Would you say there's a competition at the other spot? Like there's Michael Thomas, there's Issa, there's Jordan Lucas. I think is working there. So I'm thinking that the front runner for that job so far is Isa Abdul Qaddus. So I'm going to ask you, what have you seen from him? Is there anything that should stand out, or is he just kind of there? And is that a good thing or
He's
not?
been another guy. He hasn't. It's not. He hasn't really stood out, to be honest with you. Um, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's not. He hasn't necessarily done anything so far that's been like, wow, this guy is definitely the guy to be next to Rashad Jones in the Dolphins secondary and the safety position. So I just think you got three guys that you're looking at, and you have questions about whether it be on the field or just staying healthy or whatnot. But yeah, he got three. Like I say, it's definitely some questions there. But like I say, the Dolphins said they're gonna rotate guys and see which one works there. So that's kind of been their whole plan, just rotating each guy and seeing how they can work. But you really don't know how it can work again until you get Rashad Jones back because his style of play, he's kind of like the center fielder in baseball. You just kind of let him do his thing, and the quarter fielders just stay back and let him decide if he's going to catch the ball or not.
Yeah, Rashad is quite a unique individual.
Yeah, he
Where would
definitely is. Like he definitely boom or bust player. Normally it's boom though.
Yeah. Where would you just then? This is a little off topic, but where would you rank him among the league safeties? Because obviously he thinks he's the best. So, where would you rank him? Just you personally.
Oh, well, I think Earl Thomas to me, I would have him up at the top. But you look at Rashad Jones, and he made the NFL 100 list. I'm sure not as high as we hadn't talked to him, obviously, because he's been in Atlanta. But obviously, I'm sure that's not as high as he would like to be. But I definitely think he's definitely a top five safety. I made the argument he could be a top three safety, top three or four safety in the league. But if you're talking about the best safety, I'm a big fan of Earl Thomas. I think he's right now the best one in the game.
Yeah, all right. Okay, now here's a little bit of an interesting question. I don't think anybody's really thinking about it, but now we've been talking about Adam Gase, blah 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 blah. It's his offense. He's the one calling the shots. So my question to you is, where exactly is Clyde Christensen during all this? Like he's the offensive coordinator by name, but obviously it's Adam Gase's offense. So what exactly has Christensen been doing while this has all been going on?
Well, he's teaching and he's out there helping out Tannehill and talking and the young quarterbacks and just help. He's out there just for guidance as well. Helping, he's in their meetings, talking to the players, whether it be receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. He's in there a lot with the quarterbacks, and just trying to help them learn the offense. Yeah, he's not necessarily there calling. At least not this year. He won't be calling the plays. Now down the line, Adam Gase said it's a possibility that Christensen may call the plays at some point. But yeah, this year it definitely be Gates calling the plays. But yeah, he's really there to support and somebody that can help the players learn the offense a little bit quicker. So that's pretty much what he's doing right now, and he's having a good time. He's a great interview. He's very especially the man to be his age. He's very energetic. He feel like he loves being down here in South Florida and working with the young players and loving his role as the offensive coordinator.
He definitely talks a lot. That much I will admit.
Yeah, he does. He's a good. You don't have to worry about a good sound bite for him. Like he's gonna give you what you want.
Maybe sometimes a little too much because then you have to sort through everything. It's like,
Well, I'd rather have that than to have somebody that gives you
yeah,
one sentence and you can't really do much with that.
yeah. Covering New England would be a horrible thought.
Yeah, Belichick. Yeah, yeah. Well, you really have to think about questions that make him. You have to ask open-ended questions. Like you can't ask yes or no questions or so, like very questions you're going to get a short answer to. Like you have to ask specific, like strategic questions with Belichick. I assume.
All right. So one last question before we move on to the our interview with AJ Cruz. I wanted to ask you this, Antoine. Jim Washburn. Now I know that we're overreacting to him being brought in to be the pass rush specialist, but obviously to have somebody who actually has that kind of a role, it has to be rather significant his ability to coach. What is he? Have you noticed any changes in the way that he coaches as opposed to previous years with the previous coaches? Like, how does he teach the pass rush?
Well, we hadn't really spoken to him yet, unfortunately. But just watching him in practice, the players out there had a good time. Like it's a lot more active. He's out there. You can't tell exactly what he's saying all the time, but he's very energetic. Like he's out there teaching the players technique, like how it's supposed to be done. And if they do something wrong or they miss an assignment, he's there telling them what they did wrong. And the way that's different from the past is, and I've said this before, like I think you could just tell the practices are just so much. It's so much talking being done in the practices, and people are like, "Well, that's how practice is supposed to be." But in the past, I've covered the Dolphins. This is my third year covering the Dolphins, straight. Well, fourth year actually, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that on the Philbin era. It was very at times it was. I mean, you heard talking, but it wasn't as vocal as you're hearing it now. It wasn't a lot of teaching going on, and I'm not trying to take shots at anybody. I'm just saying like it was just it's a lot more teaching and talking out there now as opposed to in the past, which is a great thing. Like if somebody does something wrong, you want to get on them there and just not necessarily get on them, but let them know what they did wrong, so they won't do it again.
Yeah, it's just called you correcting the problem. You're not just kind of like
Yeah,
bland repetition.
yeah, and that's a good thing because you don't if you practice wrong things, it's going to carry over to Sunday. And if you watch the Dolphins game the past 3 years, I don't need to tell you there are a lot of wrong things that happen. So I think it's good. Not saying it won't be the Dolphins will be perfect on Sundays, but at least, like I say, they're taking time to teaching. They're going out there and teaching the guys. Try to let them know so they can learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. Actually, before I lied. That was not the last question. This is going to be the
Okay,
last
go
question.
ahead.
Sorry, man. Now you just mentioned that they get on. Well, not get on. You know, we know what you mean. Like he corrects them. The coaches correct them if they do something
Yes.
wrong. So does that mean that every time Tannehill has bad footwork, Adam Gase is there to say, "Hey, cut that out"?
No, 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 no. It's not like no. It's not like Bill Parcells talking trash to Phil Sales back in the day. No, it's nothing like that. But it's if like it's Adam Gates is talking trash. It's both ways. Like if the offense does something wrong, he's talking to not just Tannehill but other players. He's not necessarily getting on them. Sometimes he may it's not yelling at them, but he may say something. It may be jokingly, it may not be, but it's not like it's definitely not on the Bill Parcells level where Bill Parcells used to stand behind Phil Sims every time he threw it critique him. Like that's pretty bad. Like that gets you nervous right there. It's not on that level, but he is watching all the plays. Obviously, he's an offensive mind, so his focus is going to be mostly on the offense, and he's kind of let Vance Joseph best do his thing defensively. And yeah, he's like I say, he's definitely active and talking to the players, and they really responded to that. They really enjoy like his enthusiasm and the energy and the fact that he loves going out there and teaching, and they feel like they're poised to have a big year. They feel like they love the offense. They have they finally have an up tempo offense, which offensive coaches before said they were going to have an up tempo offense, and they never did. But it seems like it's going to come to fruition this year.
All right. So, um, all right, Antoine, you're free to stick around if you want. We would really appreciate it if you decided to stick around. But right now, we have our interview with AJ Cruz going on. So, everybody, sit tight and listen to this man's story because his journey to the NFL was definitely a long one. We are joined by Miami Dolphins wide receiver AJ Cruz, former AFL standout, great kick returner, returned 6 touchdowns in 2015 for the Rattlers. So it's nice to have you on with us, AJ.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so Now, if I recall, you actually signed a brief contract with the Bears last season, so you actually got to meet Adam Gase ahead of time. So, what can you tell us about what the atmosphere is around the Dolphins arena and just hanging out, and what's Adam Gase done so far to make this really feel like his team?
Yeah, I had that experience, like you said, last year with Chicago, and I think Coach Case is a phenomenal coach. He's got an incredible feel for players individually, and can reach players and relate on such a unique level that's rare to find in a lot of coaches. So right off the bat, I think most guys would agree that there's this level of communication, of familiarity, this comfort that he kind of brings about him. That's again very unique for coaches, and obviously his success speaks for itself and his production with offenses he's been with previously. So it's an awesome atmosphere. It's really great.
Now, you've been brought in to compete in the off season, and I wanted to know what is it that you've been working on so far with the Miami Dolphins offense?
Yeah, just trying to get better every day. Like I said, fortunate enough to be around the system last year, to know the playbook, and it's really just developing in whatever facet I can to contribute and have an impact. So whatever and wherever they want to place me is what I'm going to continue to work on and build on. And again, they tell me to go outside, I'll go outside. If they tell me to do special teams, whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do. So, I got a lot of trust and faith in Coach Gase. So I know he's going to put guys in the right spot to be successful.
And the wide receiver position is actually pretty crowded with the Miami Dolphins. Tell us a little bit about that competition going on. Like, how is everybody competing? And tell us about what's the atmosphere like in this competition, because there's only so many spots on the roster for wide
Yeah.
receivers.
Yeah, no, it's a great atmosphere. I mean, anytime you got a talented group like we do, the competition is only going to breed success and breed excellence, really. So it puts us on our highest level. So it's a great atmosphere to be around and the best when you got guys pushing each other day in and day out, trying to get better on the little things, the details, the techniques. It only elevates everybody's game. So it's been an awesome group to compete with for sure.
Hey AJ, it's Chad again. Thanks for being on the show. One question that's kind of unique with you is you did play in arena football and transition over to the NFL, and from time to time we see players do that. Just out of curiosity, how does that process kind of work? I mean, obviously when college players come in, there's scouts and there's the draft, but how do you get scouted in the Arena League? Do you have a lot of contact with NFL, or do you know there's scouts there? Could you kind of walk us through that process on how you go from the Arena League to the NFL?
Yeah, it's an absolute grind. Opportunity is few and far between in terms of getting looked at by NFL teams. So I think there's a lot of talent in the Arena League for sure, and I think there's a lot that it was a great stepping stone in terms of going from college to arena to the NFL in terms of that transition. Was very helpful on a professional level, competition level. It was just it's unique. I mean, it depends. You got to do something that stands out. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of success in returning kicks in the Arena League, and that was really what opened doors. And actually, I was a defensive back my first year with the LA Kiss, and then even when I was with the Arizona Rattlers, I would play a little bit of DB, this position called jack linebacker, and I was playing receiver as well. So I kind of was on the field quite a bit, and I think that really helped. It helped conditioning level one, but I think that really helped elevate my game and prepare me for complex systems because I had to know offense, defense, special teams in the Arena League. So when I got to where I was at and learning a complex NFL system, I felt like I had the preparation with all these other, just in terms of like the load of the content and really understanding schemes and things like that. So it was really beneficial in that sense. But really what it comes down to is being able to make plays and find a way to stand out in whatever way that is. A lot of times it's going to be more of a special teams guy. If you're a guy that can make an impact in that segment, then you're going to probably have an opportunity, with some scouts, and really that process was through my agent. My agent did an incredible job getting my film out in front of the right personnel, and I know I actually had a couple of workouts lined up before I went to Chicago, and then Chicago was the first team to kind of bring me in, and kind of the rest is history when I signed there, and obviously got introduced to Gase and his system there, and that's what led to kind of the opportunity here.
Yeah, that's a really neat journey, actually. Just for the fans out there that follow it, I know there's a lot of differences, but could you maybe highlight like two or three? What are the biggest differences for you between playing arena ball to the NFL? I mean, I know I hear the speed of the game is different, but just from your experience, whatever that maybe the two or three biggest changes you noticed, like when you came into camp for the Bears or the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, speed and size is I think the biggest difference, but you also got to understand that the way that the arena game works, that's almost a faster paced game. So the speed in a certain sense is faster in the gameplay, whereas the athleticism and speed of the individual players is definitely a little bit quicker in the NFL. But it's hard to describe because the field is 50 yards long. I believe it's like 23 yards wide. You got a motion towards the line of scrimmage that you can do. So it's kind of hectic and very fast paced in the scheme of things. So kind of that really helped the transition once the field was opened up, and being new to receiver, I felt things kind of slowed down mentally for me when I got to the NFL, and that was a really awesome preparation just because. Like I said, that 50-yard field and that small width and that motion really speeds things up mentally. You got to be quick to think, quick to react. So it's helpful to kind of take some time and be able to read things pre-snap. There's not a lot. I mean, you could definitely pre-snap read stuff with the Arena League, but a lot of stuff happens on the fly and in reaction, whereas you can get a good idea with pre-snap and at the snap of the ball with some of these NFL schemes.
Sure, that makes really good sense. Actually, I appreciate that. Another thing with unique about you is if correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to Brown University, right, for college?
Correct.
That in itself too is a rarity. You don't see many Brown players in the NFL. Do you? I don't know if you still go back to attend those games, but do you talk to like some of the players playing at Brown right now, or potential players that might have questions for you on your journey to the NFL?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a number of guys reach out. I've been fortunate to have a great relationship with my coaching staff from college, and I try and stay up to date with them as much as possible. And then, I think this last class is the last class that I was with in college, so they're coming up on their senior season. So this is kind of the last group of guys that I actually had a personal relationship with. So, I've had a number of those guys kind of throughout the time reach out if they wanted to keep playing or what the path was like for me, what it took. And, just to give you guys a little bit more details, like it was, when I said it was a grind with the AFL, one thing that happened for me was it actually took me about 12 workouts, open tryouts, things that I was trying to get with teams before I kind of got that shot, even in the Arena League. And, part of the position change for me was opportunity, getting more looks as a wide receiver versus a 5'8" defensive back. And with my return stuff, that kind of was definitely an arduous process. And so, yeah, that's kind of been an opportunity that has allowed me to kind of speak with some of the guys and explain the grind that it takes and the determination and perseverance. And, because it's really easy. You got to have thick skin and you got to have, a very goal-oriented mindset, because you get discouraged, you get told no more times than you get told yes. So it's one of those things where that in and of itself has led to awesome opportunities to speak with even just high school kids transitioning to college, and then obviously a lot of kids or a lot of these college kids that are trying to keep pursuing a career in professional sports in the NFL. It's been a lot of opportunities to kind of chat with them and talk to them about mentally what it kind of takes.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so back to the Dolphins. There's a lot, not just wide receiver. There's also a lot of crowded. It's also crowded in the kick returning spot. There's like, I believe there was like 9 guys and returning kicks in OTAs just the other day. So my thought, my question to you is, with the NFL making all these changes to like it pretty much eliminate kickoffs altogether. Like now touchbacks are going to be from the 20, are going to start teams off at the 25-yard line to add like a little extra incentive not to return kicks. What are your thoughts on what the NFL is doing, and how do you think it's going to affect you?
It's actually interesting. Our coach Rizzi made a comment about where he thinks that's going to lead, and I could kind of agree. He thinks that maybe teams might start, putting a little more height and essentially not getting it quite down to, um, that the end zone for touchbacks. So that might actually lead to more plays taken out just because the shorter kick taking you not quite into the end zone, so you're kind of forced to run with it. So it will be interesting. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could very well end up being less opportunities in terms of that phase of the game for kickoff return. But however things kind of end up playing out, our mindset always, whatever position you're in, is compete to the highest level that you can, and take every opportunity as it comes. So that's kind of a question that I guess we'll have to see, because I feel like it could easily go both ways.
Do you think these higher kicks are going to change the way that you approach kick returning altogether?
No, I don't think so. I mean, uh, you always got to be able to adjust, and I think that there's plenty of opportunities where short kick opportunities is something that's, in terms of the depth of the kick, not quite going to the end zone. That's something that's practiced regularly, anyways. So it's just one of those things where you got to continue to adapt and scheme and game plan as those things unfold. But really, the approach is the same. Man for man, and get the ball in the end zone if you can. So
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so now a fun question, and we've asked pretty much everybody who's come on this show so far, so we're gonna have to ask you next, and this may be the hardest question that you get all season long. Are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
oh, uh, that's a tough one. I would say I used to be Team Ironman, but Team Cap. I think I've always been a big fan of actually the Winter Soldier, so uh, I might have to lean on the side of Team Cap.
You defected.
Man, we get more and more team captains from the Dolphins. I'm trying to
Yeah,
recruit more Team Iron Man guys, but Jacques McClendon was team captain too, I believe, if I'm right, Lewis. So,
Yeah.
man, they're going to
yeah.
be losing.
I
We're
mean, did you
losing
get?
guys.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because like I really like. I'm a big fan of those billionaire vigilantes and guys like Iron Man and Batman and now the new guy introduced, well, not the new guy, but in the movies the new guy introduced Black Panther. And there's like I've always kind of been on that side of things, but I don't know why. I guess the Winter Soldier was something that sold me to Team Cap.
That's pretty good. Just a couple more quick question for you.
Yeah.
We realized that Wes Welker had stopped by camp maybe a
hmm
couple days ago, and I thought just looking at you in particular, you have a lot of the same attributes. He was a punt
hmm
returner. He's similar in your frame, and that just made me kind of wonder. Did you have like going through college? I assume going through college you aspired to want to play in the NFL. Did you have a favorite player or a player you looked up to, or maybe you tried to model your game after?
Yeah. I mean, actually, yeah. So I think I alluded to it earlier. I was a defensive back in college, and the guy that I really looked up to was Champ Bailey, and that was a guy that I would watch constantly. Technique, watch how he played, and kind of try and adopt some of the things that he did, and try and bring that into my own game. And as I've made that transition to wide receiver, Wes has definitely been one of those guys where I'll watch a lot of film. I think last year I pulled up um, every game film of him from like the last 2 years or maybe 3 years that he was in, and I would just watch and see how he did things. See, especially with the scheme, with our scheme, like that's that's something that I would want to emulate and um, try and replicate. And so he's definitely been a guy that I've tried to take as many pointers, and with him being here has been awesome. Picking his brain and bouncing questions off of him. Especially live when we're here and there's a play that happens, and it's just like, oh, okay, well now I gotta, someone who's had a lot of success in this system and a similar system. Um, it creates a lot of opportunity for growth in my game and in all the guys' games. So I think a lot of guys have taken advantage of having him here and uh, really using that as a way to grow as a player. And that's what it takes. And I mean, again, like we talked about it earlier, just this core group. There's a lot of guys that are working and competing. That's what's exciting.
All right, last question before we let you go, AJ. And you mentioned you. It was. I actually found it very interesting that you mentioned Champ Bailey because since you're currently a wide receiver, but you did play in the secondary. So my question to you would be, would you ever want to go back there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a guy. I'm going to go wherever I can contribute. So if that were to ever happen, I know last year there was talks of getting in at nickel, but that, I mean, who knows? And I'm just here to, again, we're all here to compete, and wherever we're placed, that's where we're going to do whatever we can to, again, have an impact and make a difference. But yeah, I'm gonna contribute wherever the coaches see fit. I'm gonna do whatever I can, and that's the mindset of pretty much everybody here on this team. And yeah, so we're looking forward to getting better and contributing wherever we're placed.
Okay, so AJ, we really appreciate you coming on with us. Awesome insight on the AFL and kick return. So we really appreciate you coming on and being so candid with us. That's actually pretty awesome of you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Great.
I hope you had a good time because I know we did.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, AJ.
All right, you bet.
All right, so that was AJ Cruz, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins and a former Arena Football League awesome kick returner, 6 touchdowns for the Rattlers, and awesome stuff right there. Miami Dolphins youth programs are excited to host Dolphins Academy summer camps with 3 weeks available at the Baptist Health Training Facility in Davie, as well as 1 week in Jupiter. Boys and girls from ages 5 to 15 can participate in an interactive week-long football experience featuring appearances by current and former Miami Dolphins players. The camp focuses on football training, teamwork building, and the importance of education. For further information, visit dolphinsacademy.com. All right, so that was our interview with AJ Cruz, and now joining me is my co-host Chad Ronenbaum. Nice to have you on with us, Chad.
Thanks, Lewis. Sorry I was running a little late, but
what happened, man? Everything okay?
oh yeah, just it was a little late getting back. That was all.
All right.
Nothing bad.
Okay, so you missed the interview with Antwan, and now I'm gonna have the distinct pleasure of joining in another friend of the show, Chris Early, otherwise known as Duke. Duke, thanks for calling in with us, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let me just give you guys a little recap of our interview with Antwan. He did admit that Laramie Tunsil was struggling quite a bit in OTAs, at least what he could see over the course of the 3 weeks, and but he's still convinced that it's just a matter of him getting used to the speed of the NFL, learning how to deal with bigger guys like Ndamukong Suh and Andre Branch, like these guys who are just giant beasts of men who were not necessarily who he went up against in college. And then, of course, he did also say that Ryan Tannehill seems to be taking a more vocal approach to the offense. He seems to be more capable of telling others how to handle things. He seems to be somebody that the players are starting to look up to more, and he's not overly worried about Rashad Jones. This is for you, actually, Chad. Chad has been saying for the past couple of weeks that he's not really happy with Rashad for just kind of blowing off OTAs, and Antwan, while he's not necessarily happy about the whole situation, he's not necessarily worried about it either. If he decides to skip out on mandatory minicamp, then the Dolphins are going to start having problems because yes, Rashad needs to be there so the players that are going to be with him know how he plays and how they need to adjust to go there. And we also just talked a little bit about Kenny Stills, Jakeem Grant. There was a lot of good stuff, and now I'm going to ask you guys, with OTAs over and done with, and I'm going to start with you, Duke. What are your thoughts on OTAs and what are the reports that came out?
I don't think there's a whole lot you can really gain from them. It's just a glorified walkthrough, pretty much. Just, it's good to hear some news because it's football, but I don't think you can really read into a whole lot. The offensive line, I mean, there's no pads on, so you expect a rookie to struggle. I don't care who they are, how good they are, or a prospect they were. They're going to struggle when they first come into the league, and when you get put up in your first real practice against somebody and all pro like Dominican Sue, you're not going to win. That's just not going to happen. So I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. It's just good to hear kind of some football news. I think to me it's more interesting that they're splitting reps with between Lippett and Xavier Howard for the other starting cornerback spots. You kind of figure that a second round guy is going to have the nod, but I think it really appears to be an open competition between the two.
All right, and how about you, Chad?
I'm not overly concerned either. I think what Duke said was right on target. Sorry, my mic is cut on me.
I was wondering. He's like, what happened? He just yeah, Duke said it all. Moving on.
Yeah, sorry. No, I did want to touch back on the Rashad Jones. So you had said on Antwan that he was not worried about it, right?
Not really. I mean, he knows that it's not a good thing, but he's not going to worry about it unless he starts skipping out on mandatory minicamp.
Yeah, I've been hearing that from other people too. Like, oh, don't worry about it. He's not going to really hold out. But I don't understand the point of what he's doing then. Because, I mean, basically everybody is just not taking him holding out seriously. And so I don't quite understand the point of holding out at all if it's not going to get him anywhere. But anyway, I guess I've been kind of going back and forth with people on the Rashad Jones thing because it is frustrating because he had the drug suspension and he is paid pretty well for his position. So this isn't like a guy who's in his rookie contract final year that hasn't really made any money in the NFL wanting to get a new contract in place. This is a guy that has a premium contract and kind of like Von Miller, he's just for his own personal wanting to make even more money, and it puts the team in a precarious situation. Both, one, they don't know if he's going to be here, and two, if they did pay him that, it's harder for them to field a good team because they have less salary cap space.
Now, Duke, you haven't actually said anything, at least on our show, about this. So, what are your thoughts on the whole Rashad Jones situation? Duke? Hello?
Hello?
Hello. Hi.
It sounded kind of broken up there. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so it looks like my mic's having problems too, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the question was, now you haven't had much to say on Rashad Jones, at least not on our show, because you haven't actually mentioned it on our show. So what are your thoughts on the whole Rashad Jones situation?
I mean, as long as it gets resolved one way or another, I don't really care. I mean, I see both sides of it. He's already got a premium contract, but he's also at a spot in his career where he's probably not going to get another big contract. And so maybe he says, this is the point where I need to do something to see if I can maximize my income earning potential. I don't see a problem with that necessarily. So as long as he doesn't miss games, as long as he doesn't hold out and hurt the team, that would be what I would be concerned with. Now, I think it was last year or a year before, I can't remember, that Cam Chancellor did for the Seahawks, and it hurt them a little bit, but they're a little more equipped to handle something like that Dolphins, if he's not there for the Dolphins for like 4 games, I mean that's going to be a major hit. Not that people are expecting the Dolphins to make a playoff run or something this year, but you want to have you'd like to start a new season with a new head coach, firing on all cylinders. And if he's sitting out, you're going to be missing. So, that's what I want to see. If he misses he's going to lose money by sitting out the mini camp. But then it's a month off, and they don't start until July. And if he's there in training camp, I'm fine. Just get it resolved one way or another. Get him back on the field, and we'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that him holding out at this time isn't really going to affect the team too much. If closer it gets into training camp, it becomes more and more significant. And obviously, if he holds out actual games, it becomes even more significant. One question I have, as a GM, what do you guys think of the approach of going to him and saying, all right, we understand you want more money. We can't do that, with our salary cap situation. We will allow you to talk to some other teams on salary cap. And if you can work out a deal where they will pay you more money, then we will talk to them about possibly trading you for picks.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, to me, and this always gets brought up, or at least it has on the Fin side. If they're like, well, Belichick would have already traded him by now, or this or that. I'm like, well, that's a move he can afford to make. And he traded Chandler Jones, and for the most part, the reason for that was because he knew he wasn't going to be able to pay him when his contract was up, so he got rid of him beforehand. I don't think the Dolphins are in a position that they can lose a talented player or just get rid of a talented player due to money. And he's a Pro Bowler. He's one of the top safeties in the league. The safety is a position that there's not a lot of good play in the league. If you want, you got to hold on to it. I mean, if you can get something good, like if you could get a first and a second or something like that, I don't know that you would. But I mean, I'm just not a fan of that idea as much.
Yeah, and I would have to say that I would not even entertain the idea of trading Rashad Jones. I mean, I've said this before on previous shows, and I'll say it again. He just means too much to this Dolphins defense to just let him walk. I mean, you look at what he did last year, and that was with the garbage defense as a whole. If there was but one shining glimmer of hope on the whole team all year long, there was no question about what he could do. It was Rashad Jones. Even Ndamukong Suh was not firing on all cylinders, so to speak, at the beginning of the season. But the one guy who was there the whole way through, it was Rashad. And he just means too much, especially to a defense that's going to be as aggressive as people are claiming as Vance Joseph's defense. You just can't let him go. And I would also make the suggestion that what if really I know a guy. He tweets this all the time. He's friends with Rashad. He says that all he's looking for is just a little guaranteed insurance. That's all he's really looking for. He's not necessarily looking for a huge raise, so to speak. He just wants to make sure that he gets his money guaranteed. Would you be willing to do that?
Oh yeah, if you can finagle a contract, do it. I mean, to me, it amazes me every year that people always seem to get in an uproar about the salary cap. And I understand that Miami lost some talent this year in free agency. I don't think they lost. I was a Lamar Miller apologist. I think that, I'm hoping that J.E. can step up. I don't know that he can, but I think losing Miller was going to hurt. I'm not worried about anybody else really leaving. But, everyone's like, well, they couldn't sign Olivier Vernon because of all the previous stuff they did. Well, I wouldn't want to sign Olivier Vernon to the contract that he got either. And he wasn't going to take a hometown discount. So, I mean, people get all in an uproar that Miami's going to be in this salary cap problem, and they never are. They said that in 2013. They signed Mike Wallace and all these other free agents, and it was going to hurt them in 2014 when they went out and signed Brandon Albert. And they were going to be limited in 2015 when they signed Ryan Tannehill. And then they said, well, I'll come back to bite him this year. Yet they're sitting in a pretty good salary cap spot at the moment compared to the rest of the division. They could add probably a pretty substantial veteran if there was one available, based on what they've got available. And going into next year, based on salary cap projections and contracts that will be up, they're going to be sitting somewhere in around the $30 million cap space range. I mean, that's more than enough to sign guys you need or want. So, I don't think salary cap's a big issue. It's so easily manipulated, and that's the problem. The Dolphins have been trying to build through free agency and not using draft picks. Once you get draft picks, once you start using draft picks, then you start re-signing your own guys. I think that's the stage they're going to get to. I think this year was a start. But my whole point, and I kind of got sidetracked there, is the salary cap is so easily manipulated that if you want to finagle some guaranteed money in there, do it. That's not a problem.
I agree with what you're saying in general, Duke. But the issue I have with Rashad Jones part of that is where do you see the end point on this? Either one of you, and I'll just walk you through what I mean by the end point is, you go direction one, the Dolphins give him what he wants. And as an organization, that's like suicide because you are telling every player on that team, if you don't like your contract, all you need to do is hold out and you'll get what you want. So you have that issue. This other endpoint is you stand hard and you don't give him what he wants. I have seen a lot of this with other players. I'm very concerned that you are not going to get Rashad Jones performing like he did last year because in his mind, he didn't get what he wanted. He's worried about getting hurt now. He starts making more business decisions on the field than worrying about winning football games. And it's just not a good scenario because he basically has to, not get what he wants. You get closer to training camp, you get closer to the season. He has to give in and he has to look kind of like a fool because everybody's just sitting here basically saying he's not going to hold out. He's not going to start losing money off his contract, start taking fines. And so that makes him look bad. And so you wonder where his head's going to be coming back into the organization. So that's why I'm throwing out the idea, if he's 28, 29, he's in his prime. I have no disagreement. He's a great safety. I also think he's being paid very well, like a good safety. And so if I was able to get a decent number of picks for him, I would really start considering it because I don't see any endpoint where this ends well for the Dolphins.
And I think a point about the trade would be if he does hold out and misses games. And I think that probably the next guy up will be Michael Thomas. I'm a Michael Thomas fan. I think he's a very smart player. If he stepped into that role and played at a level, a good enough level that you would be comfortable letting Rashad Jones go, that's when I'd start making phone calls. I don't know that I would do anything beforehand. I wouldn't do anything in June or July or even August. But if he misses that kind of time and you put in Michael Thomas back there and defense doesn't really miss a beat, then you're kind of saying, all right, well, this guy's got, you're not going to get the same kind of play. I'm not saying it'd be the same, but if you can get by with what you've got and not have him on there, I'd say, we're fine where we are. Let's go ahead and trade him. It just depends on that. I think he'll come back, and I think there's a compromise to be worked out. I mean, I think if I was how many years are left? 2 years on this contract?
I believe so.
I believe he has 2 more, yeah.
So, I mean, if it were me, and I mean, the compromise that I would look for if I was the general manager would be, I'll be like, listen, I will be willing to work with you if you work with us. You go out there and play, and, through 8 games, if you're playing at the level that you've continued playing at, then we will go into discussions about doing an extension for more guaranteed money or whatever it is at that point. And then that way it kind of looks like, all right, we stood our ground. We weren't just going to give in, but we do want to reward good players. And by that point, you're already looking at the guy for the last year of his contract looking at an extension, kind of like what they did with Cameron Wake. I don't know if Rashad Jones will buy into that, but I mean, to me, that seems like a reasonable compromise. Say, hey, you give us a little bit more. You've done good. You got a Pro Bowl out of us. That's what you wanted. Give us just a little bit more. Let's get closer to the middle of the season where that contract is kind of halfway up, and then we'll work on something then.
All right. So yeah, it's gonna be a situation where we're gonna have to wait and see until next week when minicamp starts. If Rashad shows up for that, then all of this will hopefully not be much to be worried about, because just to counter your point, Chad, I can't imagine that he would just decide that no, because you didn't give me the raise I wanted, I'm just gonna not play now, because that would hurt him in the future. Like, I don't see him, if he's 28, 29 now and his contract is 2 more years on it, he'd be 30 by the time his contract was up. Some team somewhere, if he keeps up his level of play, is going to give him big money. Like, I don't think another big contract will be out of the question if he continues to play the way he is. So I can't imagine that he's just going to stop and make people think that, oh, wait a minute, he may be slowing down prematurely.
I mean, the Dolphins, I mean, you look at teams like Seattle or Green Bay or New England, and they have iconic players. I mean, yeah, Joe Montana plays for the Chiefs once, but nobody thinks of him as a Chief. He's a 49er. And these teams now have players that are kind of iconic players of the franchise. And unless Ryan Tannehill becomes that guy, Miami doesn't have one. They're a team of nobodies and mercenaries. And to me, Rashad Jones is a homegrown guy that is an iconic, could be an iconic player for your team. You know, you want to keep guys like that around. That's why I'm glad they extended Wake and kept him around, which I know there was a lot of rumors of him being released or something like that. And I'm like, well, I understand that. And I understand that he's coming off an injury and age is a factor. But at the same time, he's probably one of the few Dolphins that have just been a career Dolphin. And they just don't have, we don't have that. It's not a, you know, these other teams have that, and that's who you think of this franchise. And, you know, when people look at the Dolphins, they see, well, they're just, you know, they're just guys, and they have a couple of players. When you start getting these players in, you know, like Rashad Jones is kind of in that area. Jarvis Landry is coming up into that area. You know, maybe a Laramie Tunsil becomes who we think he is. Maybe Ryan Tannehill becomes who we want him to be. Then, you know, you've got those players that, you know, hopefully the Dolphins will get out of this malaise they're in and start making the playoffs. And when that happens, people say, oh, well, look at these great players, and they will always think of them as Dolphins. You know, we have Marino, and that's about it. I mean, you can't think of anybody. I mean, there's people out there who are driving cars now that are in college who can't think of anybody during their formative years growing up. They can say, yeah, that guy was a Dolphin.
Well, there's Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Cam Wake, I would think.
Well, you got all right. Well, you say you've got Taylor and you've got Thomas. That's it. You got those two.
Sam Madison.
Maybe. I mean, I like Sam. He's probably on there. I mean, I think people always think of Taylor and Thomas first.
No doubt.
But I mean, it's just me. You've got a couple of these. You just need these guys, but you know they've got guys from the past. They need current guys these are Dolphins. These are career Dolphins. That if they ever go to the Hall of Fame, or if you think of great players that have worn this jersey, that's it. And I just don't like the idea of just getting rid of players like that.
I would say that Cam is the guy there, but I digress. We're going to go ahead and move on to a new topic, and it's actually the topic that's on the title of the podcast. So, Ryan Tannehill's leadership. Now, this is obviously something that I'm sure we've discussed previously, but now that we're having some more information coming out of it, I want to rehash it a little bit. The idea of Ryan Tannehill being a leader on the Miami Dolphins or not. Now, obviously, we've had the other reports going out about how Tannehill has always been the guy by example. He works harder than anybody else. He's the first one to come, last one to leave, and all this other stuff. And Clyde Christensen even said so that he feels guilty leaving before Tannehill does because the guy just doesn't know when to quit and stop working. So all that other stuff that we've normally heard, it's still happening. Yes, he's a hard worker. Yes, he's this. Yes, he's that. However, the newer reports have come out and said that he's apparently being more vocal. He is starting to take more control of things. He's starting to make this offense and this team his, so to speak. So says Mike Pouncey, who is a leader on this football team. So says Jordan Cameron, who was here during the whole fiasco of the Joe Philbin and the Dan Campbell and the whole coaching staff in flux. So he was there to see Ryan Tannehill. He's there to see Ryan Tannehill probably at the lowest point of his career, if I have to be perfectly honest. And then you have guys like Griff Whalen being impressed by him, and Christensen saying he's learning this faster than I expected him to, and he's helping others. So now I'm going to ask you once again, Chad Ronenbaum, what can Tannehill finally step up and be the leader everybody's looking at, or is this just more fluff talk from people who just trying to make him look good?
Honestly, I think it's more fluff talk. It's always sunshine and rainbows this time of year in the camp and what everybody's gonna do. I like Ryan Tannehill. I like his skill set. I think he's an efficient quarterback, but he really has never shown anything to me that suggests he's the leader of the team. Nothing like that. And I don't know that you can do it just by having good training camps or good OTAs and stuff like that. You have to make some big plays in the game, and then people will naturally follow you. One of the reasons Jarvis Landry is a leader is because, the first game of the season against the Redskins, the Dolphins are probably going to lose that game, and he suddenly steps up and returns a kick for a touchdown. Or you see him take a catch over the middle, run four guys over in for a touchdown. That's what inspires people to follow you. And so I would like to see Tannehill do a few more big things in a game. He just hasn't had very many opportunities where he's won football games. It's fourth quarter, 2 minutes left, and you've got to make a big throw. I can't blame Tannehill a lot for that because the team just hasn't been in that situation very often. But until he can prove he's the guy in a critical situation, it's going to be hard for him to be a leader on the team. So that's kind of where I go with it. Again, I'm not suggesting he's not a leader. I just haven't seen anything that suggests that he is.
Duke?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement that the platitudes that you're hearing now are not, they kind of have little value until, stuff on the field happens. I think to me what's is important about it, number one, is we've always known he had a great work ethic. He's always been, a hard worker. And I like the comments from Christensen that he felt guilty about leaving the practice facility before Tannehill did. If a quarterback's going to be in there working, maybe I need to stay in there and work a little harder too. You like hearing stuff like that. I agree with Chad that it's going to have to show up on the field. They can say, well, he's a leader, he's out here doing this and that, until you actually, win those big games or get in a position where they have to actually, he says, this is my team, follow me, victory. It's just words. What I do like about all of it mostly is that given what we know about the coaching situation and how, as Greg Jennings put it, he was babied, that he was, they had the training wheels on. They had
they limited what he could do.
Yeah, they needed, at some point you need to be able to go out on your own, and they wouldn't let him. Now, whatever the reason was, I don't know. But when you're in a position like that, where you go up to the line of scrimmage, and you are supposed to be the face of the franchise quarterback, the guy handcuffed back there, and he was. And I'm sure, every quarterback in the NFL will miss a blitz every now and then. It happens to Aaron Rodgers. It happens to all of them. But I can't imagine what's going through Tannehill's head when he walks up there. And everybody keeps saying how smart he is. And I think it needs to be noted, they're not in there talking about quantum physics or something. They're in there talking about he's football smart. He's got the football mentality. He understands things. And so it's not like he's out there, he's looking at across the line of scrimmage, and somebody he sees a defense and he's like, I don't know what's going on. I've never seen it before. What am I supposed to do? I don't believe that happens. I believe he knows what's going on. But the problem was when you limit his ability to change plays, he goes up there to the line of scrimmage and he sees a defense that he knows is going to stop whatever he's going to do, and he's powerless to do something about it. And so, as a leader, that should be something he should be able to do. He should say, no, let's forget this. We're in shotgun. We're 3 wide. I'm single back. It's going to be a pass play, but they're going to do this. They're going to rush this guy over here. I've got Jason Fox over here on one side. I'm going to get crushed. I'm going to have to dump this off short to Jarvis Landry or something else. No, I'm going to change this. This is going to be a running play. And I'm going to let Lamar Miller meet this gap because there's going to be one there. And he couldn't do that. So, I like the idea that he's taking charge of the offense. I like the idea that the coaches are letting him do that because maybe this is the side that we can see of him now that could translate to better things on the field. Being sheltered like he was, people can say, yeah, he's a leader, but they knew he wasn't. They knew he was being held back. Now the coach is like, it's all yours. Go at it. And he's doing that. He was showing he was getting advice from Manning or whoever else trying to learn to play, but before he could actually get into the playbook, watching film, teaching it to the receivers. I remember an interview where he said, some of the routes were a little different, the timing was different, things like that. And he was teaching the wide receivers that stuff. That's what you want to hear because it's showing, hey, this is my offense. I'm going to run it. If he doesn't do it, he knows they're not going to buy into him if he doesn't do it successfully. If he doesn't do it successfully this year, this is probably it for him. So, I think he understands this is what I've got to do, and he's doing everything he can right now to do that, and I think that's what they're talking about. So, yeah, I agree with Chad. It's got to show up on the field, but you like hearing this positive stuff about the way he's going about it because it's something that you've not read about him before.
Yeah, if he can be more vocal, that's definitely going to help him out a lot because that's what everybody's been complaining about is that he's just too quiet. He's timid even. That's been
you gotta look at it too. His first year, he's still learning the position pretty much.
Right.
He comes in, all right, his second year, they bring in Mike Wallace and Brandon Gibson. These are veteran guys. He's still a second-year guy. Yeah, he's a quarterback, but, maybe they had a little bit, sometimes you just don't challenge the veteran guys. But you look at the team now, he's older than all the receivers. He is, older pretty much than the offensive line. So, he's kind of,
now he's the veteran.
His team now. Yeah, he's the veteran guy. So it's one thing when there was a play this past season, I can't remember which game it was. It might have been the first game against Buffalo, where he drops a pass off, a third down pass to Greg Jennings, and Greg Jennings drops it. Now, I remember the play. It was a sideline pass. It was a comeback. And Greg Jennings beats his man, turns around on the comeback. Tannehill hits him low toward the sideline where it needs to go, right through Greg Jennings' breadbasket onto the ground. And Tannehill just had this look on his face, and actually when I did one of my game reviews, I actually posted that picture of Tannehill where he just kind of had this, like, he rolled his eyes. And I don't know what he said, but there's something, maybe he should have said something to Greg Jennings, and maybe he did. But at some point, we know how Marino would have reacted to that.
Yeah.
Marino would have chewed him upside and one down the other, saying, you don't, that ain't what, if you want me to throw you the ball again, that ain't gonna happen. Well, now he's in a position. Tannehill's in that position now. So if he throws the ball to Jarvis Landry and he drops it, he's like, if you want me to throw you the ball, don't do that again. Now, I don't think Tannehill's personality is like that. I think,
No, it's not.
I think
He's a nice guy.
I think Marino's probably more of a grouch than Tannehill, but he's in that position now where he can say, look, don't do that. If you want me to throw you the ball, or you're going to, if you want to contribute, this is what you have to do. And I think he's in that position now. Before, maybe he just couldn't challenge the veteran players. I don't know, but
I really feel like it had something more to do with the coach and staff in general. And I personally, I think that if he can be more vocal, if people can, okay, let me just put it. Let me put it this way: if he plays pretty much the same way he played last year, but there are more screenshots of him being angry when something goes wrong. He's more vocal on the sidelines. He's not happy. I think people will suddenly start giving him slack because even if his play doesn't improve, he's going to be showing traits that they've been complaining he's been missing for a while now. And that could just that alone could save him.
Well, I mean, my first complaint is going to be, Miami they've not run the ball. And, against the Jets last season, it was the second game against the Jets, they ran 70 offensive plays. That is a lot for one game. 70 offensive plays. They ran 9 of them. That's just unreal. And I know there's a lot of people on our side say, well, Miami's got to limit Tannehill. They need to limit how many times he throws because he's not good enough. And I'm like, no, they need to run the ball more because that's how you win in the NFL. Tom Brady can throw the ball over the yard 70 times a game, and it works for him. He's also, as old as I am and been playing for 20 years almost. He's learned a thing or two. Tannehill's not in that position yet, and it seems like he's been put in that position since he was in his rookie season. And then it's like they decided, well, we're going to get Mike Wallace and Brandon Gibson. We're just going to throw the ball every down. And we were talking about, there was a post Kevin put up today, and I posted a comment. Somebody posted a comment about how, if you want to get, running the ball helps keep an extra defender in the box. And I just posted where Miami ranked during Tannehill's career in terms of rushing attempts. They were 14th in 2012. Then they were 29th, 22nd, and then 32nd in rushing attempts. They averaged 21 attempts a game last season. They were almost 200 rushes behind the number one rushing team, which is Carolina. Now, granted, those teams, their quarterbacks run a lot. But even if you took out Cam Newton's runs, Carolina still had about 60 or 70 more rushing attempts than the Dolphins. It was pathetic. So, I don't care what, to be honest, I want to see Tannehill improve in some areas, but I want to see them run the ball more. I hope he audibles into a run. I hope the first drive of the season, they run the ball 10 times and score touchdowns, and he never throws it. I would love to see that.
Well,
I know that didn't have anything to do with what we were talking about.
I think you'll see that, Duke. This is.
I went on a rant. I'm sorry.
No. I think you're going to see. I have, of all the things coming this year, I have a lot of confidence the offense is going to improve quite a bit, and not necessarily just because I think Gase is pretty innovative. I think the last coaching staff was so bad. Like I tweeted out a couple of days ago as comedy that the offense I run on my 8-year-old's flag football team would probably be better than what the Dolphins were running last year offensively. It was just terrible. So that affects the whole team in terms of how they're going to do, on paper, how they're going to look, because the Dolphins' offense was predictable. It was very handcuffed, and they did things that made absolutely no sense. Not running the ball when they were effectively running the ball being one of them. But now that all that makes sense, and I actually think Tannehill is playing. If you take all things considering, the way the plays were being called last year, where it was blatantly obvious if you just played pass defense all game, that was all you had to do with Miami because they weren't going to run the ball.
If you remove the wins-loss record, is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, if you take out everything he's had to deal with, bad blocking, bad play calling, Tannehill's played pretty well, and I have absolutely don't believe whatsoever he'll be gone next year unless he has a really bad year. Because if you just look around the league, look at the Jets right now, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the desperation some teams have to get a quarterback. There would be a line to get Tannehill right now because he's a decent quarterback. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Dan Marino, but he is a decent quarterback that a lot of teams would love to get their hands on. So, and I think he'll do better with Gase. Now, all those things are different. Whether or not he'll be a decent, efficient quarterback is one thing, but will he become the guy is another thing. I don't know that he has to become the guy, but definitely right now, when you look at playing a team week in and week out, there's players in the league that people fear, and there's players in the league that if the coordinators don't do something to account for that player, they will ruin whatever it is they were trying to scheme. And Miami has some of those guys, and Dominican Sue is a guy like that. Karen Wake's been a guy like that. But when you play the Dolphins, I don't think there's many teams out there thinking we are going to have to figure out how to stop Ryan Tannehill. It's not like we have to figure out how to handle Cam Newton or we have to figure out how to handle Tom Brady. And that's going to be the challenge for both Tannehill and Gase is, are the teams they're playing on Sunday legitimately really concerned and afraid of what Ryan Tannehill is going to do to them on the field?
And that's going to be the challenge that they're going to have to deal with going into the season. Well, we're going to hopefully get to see more of what Miami can offer when training camp rolls around, and then I'll be able to go and see this stuff for myself. And you better believe that I will be out there watching every little thing that happens. And if anybody wants me to look at something specific, I will take a quick look at it. But I'm going to be spending a lot of time looking at that offensive line. I'm going to be watching very carefully for those quarterbacks near the end of July when training camp starts. And hopefully one of you two, or maybe both of you, can come on down to Miami and keep me company because it's hot out there and I could use some company.
I'll definitely be down for a few of them, Lewis, no doubt.
Yay. How about you, Duke? You need to come on. You need to come down.
Yeah, Florida heat's not my thing.
Carolina cold's not my thing.
Well, it's not cold here. And look, I mean,
neither one of you guys even know what cold is.
It's the summertime. Yeah. I mean, you saw how it was in Spartanburg.
Yeah, I know.
It's cold here. And if it's 100% humidity here and 90 degrees, 90 degrees and 100% humidity is the same anywhere. But, yeah, I prefer not to deal with that. I like snow and such like that. But
come on, man. You got just for the if nothing else, you have to know what it's like. Just once to come and watch training camp.
Well, look, man. I watched Miami Vice. I watched Burn Notice. I'd love to come visit Miami. I've never been there, but when my wife and I got married, we went on our honeymoon. We went on a cruise, and we drove down to Port Canaveral. Well, we stopped that night in St. Augustine, and it was about 3-something in the morning when we got to the hotel that we were staying at. And I got out of the car to unpack our bag or get into the hotel. And the moment I got out of the car, this is 3 o'clock in the morning in St. Augustine, my first thought was, I understand what those Dolphins players are talking about now during training camp. It was a nice muggy blanket just sit there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, I don't want anything.
St. Augustine, you're near the swamp, bro.
It don't matter. It was still too hot to be, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm used to cooler weather. Not that I'm ever up at that time anymore, but that time I was, and that was just way too hot for 3 o'clock in the morning for me. So I was like, yeah, I understand what these Dolphins guys are talking about. So that was 7 months ago, but we, I'd like to come visit Miami. I think it'd be a cool city.
I will be harassing you about this later on down the road.
I will say to anybody that hasn't seen the training camp, I mean, obviously you can see it in the game. I've watched a lot of football in my life, in high school and college and stuff, and it's something different when you're down close to the field watching it, just to see how fast those guys really are. I mean, everybody talks about the game speed, but when you see them turn up and go, like the D-backs and the receivers and stuff when they're covering, it's just unbelievable how quick and how fast they are. I mean, it's something to really, when you're down there in the field, it's impressive.
It is something interesting to see because, I mean, when you see, most of us are probably just average sized people. It's just unique to see somebody walk up, to to you that's pretty close. You can get close to them and just see how large they are.
Yeah.
And when you see someone that big, and you think, you see somebody that big in real life, they're usually lumbering around. They're not usually, running like, like a gazelle out there. And that's just what it is. You see these big giant human beings running around.
They're running around like Goliath. Where's David?
Yeah, I think the first real. I've been to NFL games before, but I went to I think it was the Dolphins Panthers back in 2009, and I was up in the top of the Bank of America Stadium there. And they were doing the Panthers introductions, and I don't remember who it was. It was a safety that ran out, and I remember watching him jog out of the tunnel. And I thought he was just jogging. He was doing his little, firing people up, yelling, doing his thing. And I thought, he's jogging faster than I can sprint. I mean, I would be struggling to catch up with him. He's not running. He's just, trotting. I was like, yeah, that's unreal. And then when you see, I think when you see them out there on the field, you don't really get an idea of just how muscular they are.
Yeah, these dudes are giants.
Because they all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
And then you see a guy. I remember I went to the 2012 preseason game in Charlotte, and this was before they traded Vontae Davis. And he walked into the tunnel, and I was 30 yards or less from him. And I thought to myself, his arms are like bodybuilder arms. They were massive. And I'm like, he's a cornerback. He's not supposed to be,
He's not supposed to be the Hulk.
Yeah, it was unreal to see stuff like that. But you were there last year at Spartanburg, and we were pretty close to the field. We made the mistake of getting right up next to the fence, which was my fault because I got there early. And the way the field dips, where we were standing was pretty much still level, and it's hard to see anything when you're standing behind guys that are 6'4" and 6'5". So, and Dominican Sue was walking out the sun like usual, and I couldn't see the plays. So, when Lewis Delmas got hurt, we missed that because it was behind.
I'm still sad. I'm
And,
still very sad about that.
The Kelvin Benjamin incident happened right in front of us.
Yeah, I'm not as sad about that.
That was pretty cool. But yeah, you're right. It's so neat to get that close to these players, and
Yeah, but Duke, for all intents and purposes, we were technically in enemy territory. I'm just saying that, like, even if it's just for like one day, you just got to come down and hang out with us, and you come down, and Chad and I will be there with you, and we'll be able to watch and evaluate together. Then we go out and have some lunch and just have a grand old time. That's all I'm saying, man.
Well, I'll have to think about it, and it probably won't happen this off season. It may be an off season or two away. So.
All right. Well, I'm just saying I'm gonna probably remind you about this as we go on. And anyway,
he's saving up for tickets to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. He wants to get ready for 2020.
This year, the Super Bowl.
All right. So all right, we kind of had a little fun there. We kind of got a little distracted, but that's okay. When we're talking Dolphins football, it can go anywhere. So we're gonna actually call this a night. So we've had a lot of stuff to talk about. We had ourselves a good old time. Talked about OTAs. Talked about Rashad Jones, Ryan Tannehill. We got the AJ Cruz interview, which of course you'll be able to listen to on the archive by tomorrow. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Antwan Staley for coming on with us. You can follow him at Antwan